How many things can go wrong with recording this podcast this morning?
You know what? We're doing it now, so
That's all that
matters.
We're here, and we've got this. Good morning.
Good morning.
We have our coffee.
Yes, and our little mugs.
We are so excited. If you're listening, you have to head on over to the YouTube so you can see
the mugs that Paige made so gracefully.
Not gracefully.
I love them. Okay, so I have
new?
to tell you something funny. So Patrick is home this weekend, and he was getting ready for work. I had to take him to work this morning because he doesn't have his car here. And I'm making myself a little oatmeal for the car. And he's like, do you think we'll have time to stop by Quick Trip? And I stopped and I was like, do you see me making my own breakfast at home right now? And you want to stop by Quick Trip? And he was like, oh, like, well, are you going to make me some? And I'm like, Sydney, stop. Why am I expecting him to change? It's fine.
Actualization is the highest level of psychological development and the complete realization of one's full potential.
In this podcast, we talk about productivity, health, and mindset to help you reach your full potential and actually actualize.
I'm Paige.
I'm Sydney.
Let's get to it.
Today we're going to talk about imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Maya Angelou actually had a quote where she said, I run a game on everyone and they're going to find me out. And that came from Maya Angelou after
writing 11 books.
Winning awards.
Yeah.
Albert Einstein, he felt like an imposter. He thought that his work wasn't that great and he was going to get found out.
That they're paying too much attention to my accomplishments.
Yeah.
It's really not that big of a deal.
So, imposter syndrome is something that everyone experiences, no matter your skill level. If you're Albert Einstein or if you're just a regular person, most people experience imposter syndrome.
We were actually talking that if you don't experience it, you might be a narcissist.
We don't have any
science that backs that up.
None whatsoever.
We're just are there really people walking around that haven't felt like they're a fraud at some point?
Right.
Or that they're they don't deserve to be doing something, or had those self-doubting thoughts. I'm sure people don't always share it, but are there really people walking around that have never felt those things? I don't know.
We've both experienced imposter syndrome, and just in a nutshell, imposter syndrome is when you don't think that you deserve your accomplishments, or you don't understand how you got to where you're getting or to where you are, and
you feel like you don't belong.
Yes.
Or you feel like I actually don't know what I'm doing and I'm just faking it.
Yes. And oh my gosh, people are going to find
out that I'm a fake.
What is going on? I'm going to fail. So some of the characteristics of imposter syndrome is self-doubt, overworking, setting incredibly high expectations for yourself, perfectionism, inability to kind of gauge your skill, how good you are at something. You don't really think that you're good.
You can feel these things in a lot of different areas in your life too. It doesn't just have to be about work. Where you could feel this, you could feel it in your relationships, your personal health, or things like that. So you could be experiencing imposter syndrome in all of those areas, or maybe you have before at some point.
So to prove us right that most people experience imposter syndrome, head on over to our YouTube video if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and leave a comment, and you don't even have to tell us about exactly what you're experiencing. Just say, yes, I've experienced this. I have felt imposter syndrome, just so that prove us right that people feel this. Everyone does.
It's called pluralistic ignorance, that everyone is feeling this way, but everyone thinks they're the only one feeling this way.
So no one talks about it.
Right, because it is kind of embarrassing. Like, it's not something that you really want to share, that you feel this way, obviously.
Right.
But we've actually learned that the only cure to it is to talk about it, is to say that you're feeling this way and getting validation from other people, and also hearing that other people are also dealing with this.
Yes. And by the end of this podcast, we're going to leave you with 3 ways that you can help battle imposter syndrome. But before we get there, we thought we'd talk about our experiences with imposter syndrome, just to kind of show you that, I mean, we definitely experience it. And just because we sit here and have a podcast where we're giving advice does not mean that.
Right. And it doesn't mean like, oh, that was all in the past and now we're completely over it. Paige and I both experienced it, a little bit of it, like within the last week.
Yes, 100%.
There's definitely different levels of it.
So let's start with the heavy. Like, let's start
All
with like,
She's really trying to get into it.
Might as well. What do you feel like you really feel imposter syndrome in your life?
Well, I'm going to start with one that I feel like I've pretty much been able to squash. But at the time, it was not. It was where I felt like I was an imposter teacher. So, like, anytime a lesson would go bad, or like I just didn't have a positive experience with a kid, or I felt like they got the best of me, I said something I should have, whatever, I would get into this head game of, well, you're a terrible teacher, you're not even good at this, like, these kids deserve a better teacher than you, like, how has no one figured out that you suck? Like, basically. And then that just kind of runs on a loop, and then you start looking for evidence to prove that, right? Your brain does. And then it spirals. And then once it gets like that momentum, then, you can feel really, really bad. And then you're going to end up like doing thing that are going to prove that to be true.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, exactly. So I figured out the only way that I got past that was by talking to people about it. So luckily I had some close friends, even within my building, that I could go and say, like, God, I really messed up today. Like, this is what I did. And I just feel like I'm such a bad teacher. And of course, most people are going to be like, you're not a bad teacher,
right.
and then give you evidence to show you why you're not. And so that really helped me get past that. And so now I feel like, I mean, not that those moments don't come up, like, no one's perfect, but I feel like I'm able to recognize it more. And I have those little tidbits of what people have told me before, or things that I know to be true, that I am a good teacher, and just because you had one bad moment doesn't mean that they found out. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that has experienced that.
Oh, I'm sure you're not. That's why people need to hear that.
Right.
Because you're a bomb teacher and you already know that. So
thank you. Okay, what about you? When have you experienced it?
I mean, I quit my job and I started a whole freelancing business that's just me, and it's writing. And my career has never been writing. So I'm like, what am I doing? Like, are you even a good writer? Like, why do you think you can do this? What if you fail? You're not cut out to do this. You're not organized. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you really think you can do this? Like, all of those things kind of play in my head. But then I have to, and so one day I had a literal breakdown at the table over lunch. My husband was home for lunch, and I felt so anxious and uptight, and then I just started crying because I was like, what if I fail? Like, what am I doing? But at the time I had I had jobs lined up. I was working on a really big
you were
job,
doing it.
And I'm like, what if I fail? Because I didn't think that I could actually be being successful, or that people actually liked my work or liked my writing. I really had to battle the imposter syndrome at the beginning, because finding that evidence to be like, oh no, you can do this because look at XYZ. I didn't really have freelance jobs that I had done just a ton in the past. I didn't have, yes, I had tons of writing experience in things, but it wasn't what I did.
Well, I think part of it is you had to just like fake it till you make it a little bit.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just see. And
See if it was going to work.
And then you ended up getting feedback from some of your clients saying that this was like the best thing that they've ever seen. I don't know if they said that, but like, you know, that they were so impressed with your rough draft that
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that specifically, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that was such a relief for you, like, because you really didn't know if you were good at it at first, because you just kind of had to see, like, knowing the facts of you do have writing experience. You are constantly writing for your doctoral program. There must be some merit there if you're in a doctoral program. Mm-hmm. And so, but I mean, that was probably really hard getting, a job where you had never done anything really like that before to earn money. Yeah. So, but then getting the feedback from the clients.
Was a game changer, the feedback. It really was. And I'm glad that we just talked about this, because even talking about this, I have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it's really vulnerable to talk about, to share about.
I really like what you said, faking it till you make it, because I think that's a really big key in overcoming imposter syndrome. And it's not lying. It's just seeing all your good qualities, knowing what you have, knowing what you can do, mm-hmm. and just acting like that person. And then it just happens.
But then also being able to validate that you're not faking anymore. Maybe you were at first a little bit, but then recognizing, like, I'm not faking it. I am this person mm-hmm. now. Like, I am doing it, and recognizing that. So maybe you have to fake it a little bit at the beginning, if you not have a lot of evidence showing you, that it's true. But then you are getting the evidence, and now it is true.
Mm-hmm. And by faking, it's not even, I hate to say faking.
Right.
It's not faking. You know what you can do. You know your skill set. You know what you're capable of. So it's not.
It's really faking. Just trying to see what your potential really
mm-hmm.
is,
mm-hmm.
and just testing it out.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna share a vulnerable one.
Okay.
I kind of copped out on the first one. One that is a lot harder to share about is.
All right, tune in next week to hear Sydney get a little more vulnerable, and we'll share 3 ways that you can combat imposter syndrome.